Fort Knox? Welcome back to my channel. It is good to be back with you guys on another video. Welcome back. Thank you for watching. I've been getting so many amazing responses from you guys, especially on topics about being transgender. I'm so happy that you're wanting me to be more open with my journey and my story, and I really appreciate you guys with all your feedback. Make sure you comment in this video also on the topic that we're talking about today. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you click the notification bell so that you are notified whenever I have a new video coming out, which hopefully will be every weekday for you guys. But as you saw in the thumbnail, and the title of this video is Misconceptions About Transgender and Being Transgender. It's really amazing. I started my transition 15 years ago, and I have come to learn over the few years, those 15 years, that people have a lot of misconceptions and people have a lot of, things that they think are true about trans people, and it's just, some of it's ridiculous and some of it's just like people don't know and they genuinely want to know. And so I want to say this is my disclaimer. I don't speak for all transgender people. I just know what me and my friends who are also transgender talk about, what we, go through, and the stories that we've shared with each other. And then also just, things that friends of mine who are not transgender have asked me, and things that they thought, before they became friends with me. So here it is. I'm going to clear up some misconceptions. This is part one, because there are several and they won't all fit into a video. So let's just go at it. So the first thing is, a lot of people think that, this whole transgender thing, this being transgender, or like all these transgender people just came out of nowhere and that it's a new concept. Newsflash, it is not a new concept. We have been around. The first reported transgender person was back in 1952, and we've been around for several years. We kind of used to hide amongst you, so maybe that's why you thought that we were, that it's a new concept, but we are not hiding anymore. We are very visible, and that's not to say that everybody who's transgender has to be visible, but as a group, we have, tried everything we can to be as visible as possible, because visibility is very important, because then these misconceptions that people have about us go away, and we integrate into mainstream society, and people don't think of it as a taboo thing. And people thinking that we're new, a lot of you know this, but there are people who just think like this, just all of a sudden all these people are transgender, and all of it, no, we're not new. We've been around for a very long time. You just found out about us, and welcome to our world. Another misconception is that we all have the same story, that we all arrived at this decision the same way, that we always knew as a kid, or that we always, our families always knew. Now that's true for me, that, as a kid I always knew, and people around me had an idea. My family always knew that I was very girly, but that's not the same for everybody. There are people who transition later in life, like Caitlyn Jenner, or, people that, arrived at their transition a different way. We didn't all come from broken families. We're not all former sex workers or were in sex work. We all have different stories, and it's not to say that any of that is bad. How we arrived at it is great. It is our story, and that's just the way that it came about. And there's, we don't all have that same story. So that's one of the misconceptions, that we all just arrived at this the same way. The next misconception is that we all want to compete with cisgender women, or that we all want to be cisgender women. Nope. Wrong. Look, we are inspired by you, and we hope that, and oftentimes, especially in modern times, we inspire some cisgender women also. Let's be real. But we are not trying to be or take your place. We're not trying to take your men. We're not trying to, compete with you and think that we're better than or that we can be just as good. No, not at all. It's crazy because I've talked about this before. The thing that I thought held me back is now the thing that I know sets me apart. I used to always try to be like every other cisgender person or every other woman, and I never wanted people to know, and I always had this thing of wanting to fit in. And now I realize that wow, this is one of those things that's not the only thing, but it's one of the things that sets me apart. I don't need to be like everybody else, and I'm not trying to be a cisgender woman. No matter how many surgeries we have or how many things we change about ourselves, we are never going to be cisgender women. We're going to be transgender women, and we are perfectly fine with that and quite proud of it. Another thing about being transgender is people think that we all go about our transition the same way. It's like first you get your hips done, first you get on hormones, then you get your hips done, you get your body done, you get your breasts done, your nose, and then you have the surgery. Whatever. No. There are girls who are transgender and identify as being trans and never have any kind of plastic surgery, or may never even get on hormones. They may choose to not be on hormones. That's okay. That doesn't make them any more or less transgender than the next girl. There's no kit that tells you okay, so now you gotta get this done, and now you get this and that. No, that's insane. It would be the same as saying that all black people have the exact same experience. No, it's not true. The next misconception is that all transgender women want to be famous or want to be performers. And I think this probably came about because we see shows like Pose, and we're accepted more in spaces that we were not accepted in before, like acting roles. And they're not people that are not transgender playing. Before, we would have people who were not transgender playing transgender, and instead of hiring a transgender actress. And I think that because there's such great representation, the representation is becoming more and more positive, and more like Laverne Cox and all the famous transgender people. I think people think that every transgender person all of a sudden wants to be famous, and that's just not the truth. There's some people who just prefer to live under the radar, and there's some people that just because they're transgender doesn't mean they do shows. That's I'm a showgirl, but not every girl is trying to be in showbiz. The same way that not every cisgender person is trying to be in showbiz. And for all of you who don't know, cisgender means not transgender. That's basically what cisgender means. The next misconception is that all transgender people want to be activists. No, not all transgender people want to be activists. It's great if they are, but nobody's forcing us to be activists. It's just something that should come from the heart. And I don't think that people should be shamed for not being activists. Not everybody has it in them to lead in that way or to step out and say things in that way. And for some people, just being, just living in their truth is activism enough for them. They're an example. And so, there's nobody should be shamed for that. Nobody should be shamed for being, not wanting to, march for transgender rights, or not want to be on their YouTube talking about it, or on their Instagram and shouting it from the rooftops. There are some girls who prefer to just not be, not tell people, and that's fine also. If you don't want to tell anybody, you don't have to tell anybody. But for those who are activists, we thank you very much for fighting for us, and for, being there fighting for all girls and guys who are transgender. The next misconception is that we are all attracted to the opposite sex. Not true. There are trans people who are attracted to the same sex. There are trans people who are fluid sexually and, may choose to be with another transgender person even. And that's okay also. But, being transgender and being who you're attracted to are two completely separate things. They're not the same thing. And I think that a lot of people think that, if you're going to become a girl, then now you're going to be attracted to men. Or if you're going to transition to a male, then you're going to be attracted to females. No, There are some trans people, there are trans men, people who transition to men from male to female or female to male who are still attracted to the sex that they were assigned in. So it's okay. It's not there's no rules. There's no hard, fast rules. The same way that there are, bisexual or pansexual or heterosexual cisgender people, same goes for being transgender. The next misconception is that, and this one to me is actually kind of funny, but it's not funny, but to me it's kind of like, you know what? That being transgender, the reason that we transitioned was about sex. Like, oh, I knew that I would attract more men with breasts and being girly, so that's why I transitioned. No, absolutely not. It was not about, on a list of things, on a list of reasons why I transitioned, having sex would be literally last on my list, or attracting men is literally last on that list. Like it may not even be on the list. Like this, I didn't do this for somebody else. I did this for me. And I think a lot of people have that misconception. I've heard people before say like, oh, like men really are attracted to you now and you get more. No, I got men before and I get them now. It was not about that. It was not about like who I could sleep with. It was more about me living my truth and being in the body that I wanted to be in, or that I felt like I belonged in. Another misconception, or I don't know if it's a misconception, but it's really like a question, is like, what's the difference between somebody being transgender and someone being transsexual? Well, they're kind of one and the same, but the reason we kind of reclaimed that word transsexual, or didn't like the stigma of that word transsexual, is because people made it all about sex. People made it all about, like, people over-sexualized us, or men wanted to use us just for sexual experiments, or people made it about, like, who you sleep with, when really it's not. So we took that word away. There are some people that still use it, and that's okay. We kind of, like, we kind of reclaimed that word in that way. Like, transsexual, transgender, it's pretty much the same thing. I identify, or I like to use the word transgender, because then that leaves that whole sex thing out of it, and you're not asking me questions about sex, because that's not what it's about. It's really about my gender. The next misconception is that, people want to know, like, asking, have you had the surgery, or have you gone all the way, or what have you had done? And people want to know whether they can ask that question or how to ask that question. The bottom line is, if you have to ask whether you're comfortable, whether you should ask that question or not, you probably shouldn't ask it. It is not a very comfortable question to be asked, and it is also not your business. It's not something that, I would go around asking people anyway. So seriously, like, don't go around asking people if they've had the surgery. I mean, like, that's just, I have had random strangers ask me, people that I will never see again, or people in interviews have asked me before, whether it be on television or on radio or whatever, whether I've had the surgery. And I always think to myself, like, what's it going to do for your life? Whether you know that I've had it or whether you know that I haven't, is going to make you treat me more like a woman if you know that I've had it? Is it going to make you think of me not as much of a woman if you think that I haven't had it? Or is it going to, like I always say, if you're not planning on having sex with me, then it's none of your business. And it's just, kind of funny, because people really think that, like, they want to know how to ask that question. And I would really want to strongly advise you, don't ask that question. It's not your business. And I think, or, just gauge how close you are to someone. Don't go up asking random girls whether they've had the surgery or not. It's not a comfortable question to be asked, because I would never go up to you and ask you what's between your legs. And I would feel uncomfortable asking you that question as much as you feel uncomfortable receiving that question. And that leads me to my last misconception, which is that we owe you our story. Transgender people, we don't owe you our story at all. We don't owe you the explanation as to why, how, when, what, where. None of that. We don't owe you that story. If we want to share that with you, then that is out of the kindness of our own hearts. I share my story with people that I'm friends with, or with, you guys out in, because I'm in the public eye. but we don't owe you that story. You know, we don't have to tell you that we are transgender, one, and we don't have to tell you how it came about. And, you know, I think a lot of people think that, you know, because being transgender is something that's being talked about a lot, or it's becoming more mainstream or whatever, that everyone wants to tell their story. Not everybody wants to tell their story, and not everybody owes you that story. So keep that in mind when you're, you know, around trans people or interacting with trans people or befriending trans people. We don't owe you that story. If we want to tell you and we feel comfortable enough with you to tell you that story, then by all means listen to us. And you know, I get it. I know you guys want to understand, and I know you guys you have questions because you want to be more accepting, or you're curious, or you just want to just educate yourself. And trust me, like, one of my main things is educating people on what it's like to be trans and what we go through, but none of us owe you that. So it's really out of the kindness of our heart. So please be as respectful as you possibly can be. Please be respectful, you know, period. Like I said, this is not the end of this conversation. I'm sure there's lots of other misconceptions that people have, and if you do, or you have questions, by all means, please feel free to comment below, because I want to hear them, because I'm going to be doing another video, probably part 2, 3, 4, who knows how, until we, you know, have used up all the misconceptions. So please subscribe to my channel and, you know, comment below. You know, I get a lot of love from you guys, but I definitely want feedback also. So give me feedback in the comments. Anything you want me to answer, any questions that you may have, or things that, you know, you might have thought about trans people before and you want me to speak on that, I will definitely do that. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.